Welcome back to Network Africa. We're still staying in South Sudan, where hundreds more South Sudanese continue to stream into the United Nations compound, seeking protection and shelter, carrying what they could of their belongings and accompanied by their children. Families arrived exhausted, some barefoot, and after having trekked long distances in the hot afternoon sun.
Hundreds of more South Sudanese continue to stream into the United Nations compounds, seeking protection and shelter, carrying what they could of their belongings and accompanied by their children. Families arrived exhausted, some barefoot, and after having trekked long distances in the hot afternoon sun. Mothers carrying their children, fathers holding on to their belongings, all queued to register at the camp.
There are so many women are there. The percentage of the women and the children is more as compared to the men. Some of them are outside and they are sending their families for the shelter inside the IDP camps. And they have, as per their discussions, they are saying that at least they should secure their families.
Civilians looking for shelter have terrible stories to tell. I have come here because terrible things have happened that have forced me to enter inside the base so that I can be protected, because I have witnessed terrible things outside there, like my neighbor who was killed. That is why I decided to come, so that I am protected. So far, water has been made available, and some non-food items have been given to some who arrived previously. Latrines and other basic facilities are also being set up. Since the fighting began on Friday, the 8th of July, at least 5,000 additional internally displaced persons have sought protection in the United Nations Tamping compound in the capital. Another 3,000 internally displaced persons who arrived at the UN house premises have been relocated to the protection of civilian site nearby.
In the meantime, scores of migrants from some parts of Africa are left stranded in Costa Rica after they were denied entry into Nicaragua on their way overland north to the United States. According to the Costa Rican Red Cross, some 2,000 migrants, largely from Africa, Asia and Haiti, have come to Costa Rica. Many use the country as a crossing point north for the American dream, but the overland route to the U.S. is via Nicaragua, and that country has refused to open up its border. Men, women and children have set up a makeshift camp at the border area in the hope that the border will open up to them. Despite increasing numbers of migrants amassing on the border and fears of a humanitarian crisis, Nicaragua has maintained its hardline stance on the migrants. Many of the African and Asian migrants reportedly paid human smugglers money to reach Central America in the hope of getting to the United States.
Hoping that they might open the border, because no one is leaving from here to go backward, because there is no way to go back. You understand? And more people are coming. Every day we are receiving about 50 to 100 people. Every day they will still come. Right now we are about 3,000 of us, and more are still coming. So if they don't open the border, we'll stay here forever.
Elsewhere, an attacker who drove into a heavy truck into crowds in the French city of Nice, killing at least 84 people, has been identified by the French police as a Tunisian Frenchman. He is believed to have come from the Tunisian town of Nsakin, which he last visited 4 years ago. However, 31-year-old Mohamed Louhaj Boulel was not known by the Tunisian authorities to hold radical or Islamic views. In the meantime, Tunisians have been reacting to the news. Many disagree with the French police officials on how it's handling the naming of the attacker, saying, quote, "We don't want to be associated with it and be labeled as terrorists. The person who carried out this attack is the sole one responsible for it. Tunisians are peaceful. This is a catastrophe, and terrorists make up a tiny fraction of the population and do not represent Tunisians," end of quote. Boulel was married with 3 children. Now, 2 soldiers have been arrested in Ivory Coast accused of failing to denounce suspected members of an Al-Qaeda cell that killed 19 people in a March attack on a beach resort town. The raid on Grand Bassam, 40 kilometers from the commercial capital Abidjan by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, the jihadist group's North African affiliate, was the furthest yet from its traditional desert base. Authorities in Ivory Coast and neighboring Mali have arrested a number of suspects since the attack. The attack in Grand Bassam, during which gunmen shot swimmers and sunbathers before storming into several hotels, also harmed French-speaking West Africa's largest economy, a rising star on the continent. Kapani State is making history as the first farm to commercially grow strawberries in the KwaZulu-Natal North Coast, a region generally said to be unfavorable for the fruit. Julani Gumedi pumped in over $1 million into the venture 3 years ago and says growth has been around 250% year-on-year. The farm is also GAP certified, allowing it to export strawberries to anywhere in the world.
In South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province, workers pick strawberries that have surprisingly thrived in the region's balmy temperature. Strawberries generally grow best in low-temperature climate, but the Kapani Estates farm in Balito, a town about 40 kilometers north of Durban, is making history when former project manager Zulani Gumede and his wife started the farm in 2013 in a hot and humid region seemed to be hostile for growing the fruit. They were not sure their plan would work. Today, Zulani is making profits from his 17-hectare farm, where he grows various varieties of strawberries that seem to be doing well there.
Strawberries do prefer cooler, colder climates than the ones which exist here in Balito. But in saying that, advancements in the varieties which you can grow have made the options of growing strawberries in this type of climate a lot more possible. The varieties we grow now are a lot more heat tolerant than, say, 20, 30 years ago. And they didn't exist 20, 30 years ago.
The farm hires at least 80 people per season to pick the berries. Zulani took a loan of about $1.5 million to start the venture. He says he is taking advantage of a gap in local strawberry farms in the region. Kapani Estate sells most of its strawberries as whole fruit and the rest as pulp for juices and jam, among other products. The farm is now certified to export strawberries across the world, having met the Good Agricultural Practices standards. South Africa's diverse agricultural sector, from grains to livestock, has also been hard hit by a scorching drought, which this year has been worsened by a powerful El Nino weather pattern. South Africa's agricultural sector alone has incurred losses of $1 billion as a result. The economy has also taken a beating this year, contracting more than expected in the first quarter of the year, owing to a sharp fall in the agriculture and mining sectors.
The currency depreciation, we find that it becomes more and more attractive to export. And it also makes it more and more expensive for the imports to be brought into the country, as they themselves become outpriced in comparison to what we can offer the local market. So we've had the repercussions of the economic climate, but more severe to us has been the drought.
Strawberries have been produced in South Africa for about 60 years, according to the Department of Agriculture. There are about 30 hectares of strawberries grown in the country today.
On our Africa Tech segment in a moment, tech startups help connect skilled workers to service providers. Please stay with us.